Monday, February 27th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Meteorologist Matthew East here with you. We'll take a look at our next storm system rolling in here during the midweek period and a couple shots of chilly air on the way as we go through the medium range here. So we'll cover some ground here in today's edition of the video. There's a look during the 5 o'clock hour from our Greensboro Tower camera this morning. Quiet and chilly. We haven't had a whole lot of chilly weather in the month of February, but it is a relatively chilly morning underway down in Charlotte. Temperature 40 at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport at the 5 o'clock hour. A lot of folks down into the 30s early this morning, even a few 20s mixed in here and there. So kind of cold, and it was a cool Sunday. There's your final high temperatures from yesterday afternoon. 56 the high in Raleigh, 58 in Charlotte, 64 in Columbia, 44 in Boone. A lot of Sunday sunshine. There's the visible satellite. It was severe clear all day yesterday. In spite of that, it was indeed a relatively cool day, something that's been a rarity this month. Highs in the mid 50s for most of the Triad area, upper 50s for most of the Charlotte viewing area. Now, these are the 5 a.m. temperatures this morning. 36 in Augusta, Georgia. It's 31 in Richmond, Virginia. Boone at 29. 32 in Wilmington, 36 in Cape Hatteras. Here's some milder air once again building through the southern plains and the lower Mississippi Valley. That'll be in place here for the next few days, but eventually later this week, this chillier air buckles in here. We will feel that as we get toward the end of the work week and beginning of the weekend, and then probably another more significant shot of colder air next week. Let's take a look at the radar this morning. Quiet overall. Now, you do have this area of rain that transitions into some snowflakes here over Pennsylvania, I should say Ohio rather, and West Virginia pushing toward Pennsylvania. And then some rain in western Kentucky, western Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. But we have very dry air in place here for the Carolinas, and that's going to chew up most of that rain. Dew points down to the 20s. That's a dry air mass. And so here's the high resolution modeling. You notice the rain really kind of dries up as it tries to advance into the Carolinas. I do think a lot of cloud cover pushes overhead as we progress through the day, as you can see there, but not a lot of significant rain. Overnight tonight, maybe an isolated shower here or there. Does not look very significant. There's our highs this afternoon. It will be milder today than yesterday, and we'll keep that warming trend going tomorrow. In fact, the warm front lifts through. There may be an isolated late day shower or storm pop up, especially near the Virginia border, but most of us again tomorrow will be rain free. And there's your warming trend underway up to 83 in Columbia, approaching 80 in Fayetteville, 70s in a lot of the rest of North Carolina. And there's your severe weather threat tomorrow and tomorrow night. An enhanced risk from northern Arkansas to parts of Missouri, western Kentucky, southern Illinois, northwesternmost Tennessee. Now, as we get into Wednesday, that system finally buckles down our way. Most of Wednesday east of the mountains should be dry here, but I do think Wednesday evening and Wednesday night we see that shower and thunderstorm activity arrive. It'll be a very warm day Wednesday ahead of that front. There's our Wednesday highs. And we will need to watch the thunderstorm potential later Wednesday, too. There's the day 3 severe weather outlook, enhanced risk for places like Tupelo, Birmingham, Nashville, Chattanooga, close to Lexington, Kentucky. And notice that slight risk extends into a lot of the Carolinas. That would mainly, again, be Wednesday evening east of the mountains, so we will keep a watch on that. Still does not look like a huge rain producer. There's the European rain totals. GFS, not overly impressed either. But our best chance of rain will come in that late Wednesday and Wednesday night time period. Now let's take a look here at some of the high resolution modeling. We'll shift to the longer range as well. Here's a look at the 500 millibar chart today from the European. There's your weakening disturbance I mentioned earlier in the video. Now here's the big trough diving in for Wednesday. Sharp cold front associated with it. So here's 5,000 foot temperatures off the European model for Friday. That's a shot of some chillier air to wrap up the week. And then next week, this is Tuesday morning of next week, the 7th of March. And then out at the end of the run, that is Wednesday night of next week. GFS is even colder with that shot of air Wednesday of next week. Those are really cold 850 millibar temperatures. So let me step you through this, and then we'll look more at the longer range. Today, pretty quiet stuff. The precipitation drying up as it approaches. Maybe one or two isolated showers or storms popping up tomorrow. But the better chance will be late Wednesday into Wednesday evening. This is around sunset Wednesday as its cold front is working in. Enough instability there that you have to watch the thunderstorm threat, and we will keep an eye on that. Behind the system, cooler for Thursday. The chilliest day probably Friday, late week, as this chilly high pressure begins to take hold. In fact, if you take the GFS at face value, that's what it is printing out for highs Friday afternoon. Now, there'll be some downsloping winds, and you'll wind up with temperatures a little warmer than what you see there, most likely, but certainly a decent shot of some chilly weather late in the week. This is Saturday. That cold high pressure moves overhead Friday night into Saturday, so there's the raw numbers for Saturday morning's lows. It does look like a freeze is on the way Friday night into Saturday morning. Pretty cold stuff overall. And then we get out here to Sunday, warming trend underway. So back in well into the 60s Sunday afternoon and probably 70s for Monday ahead of the next cold front. So let's take a look at that. All right, here's the Canadian ensemble mean of 5,000 foot temperatures, deviations from normal. This is the Friday of this week, shot of colder air. Again, an even colder shot relative to averages late next, actually middle part of next week, probably Wednesday and Thursday. But will it hold? Will that cold shot of air hold next time around next week? I don't think so. You look at the European operational run. There's its Arctic oscillation dipping negative, indicative of that good shot of cold air next week. The North Atlantic oscillation bears that out as well. But if you look beyond that, here's the European ensemble Arctic oscillation. So there's your shot of colder air with the blocking next week that's temporarily in place. But then it goes back to positive thereafter. Same story with the North Atlantic oscillation. And if you're wondering if the GFS agrees, generally so. Here's the GFS ensemble Arctic oscillation, decently negative next week, but then it trends back toward neutral at least. Thereafter, same basic idea with the North Atlantic oscillation. So yes, a shot of cold air next week. At this point, I don't think it holds long term, but we will see. All right, that is it for the latest edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Everybody have a great day. God bless.